Foxborough next Monday with a Ravens 38-6 win over the Dolphins. It is also a baseball week, not just in America, but in this state. We're down in D.C. in the suburbs, in the new hotel down at National Harbor. All of the Major League Baseball poobahs are getting together for the annual winter meetings. We bring in Alan McCallum, our longtime Oriole historian and baseball aficionado, during what is traditionally here a football week, Alan McCallum, I must say. But, dude, let me just, first off, how are you? Happy holidays, pumpkin pie, everything treating you well, Alan?
I'm doing well. I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving, and I know people are excited about the way the Ravens are playing for the most part right now. So taking a moment off from that to look at baseball and see what the Orioles and some of the other teams around them might do to prepare themselves for the 2017 season.
Alan, do you know what next Tuesday is? A pretty monumental day in my life and quite frankly, our relationship, not just you and me, but me with any listener who's ever listened or any employee who's ever been a part of what we do or any sponsor that's ever supported us or any person that's ever bought a road trip. Do you know what next Tuesday happens to be?
Is this the anniversary of NST?
No, this is the 25th year to the day that I started Baltimore Radio.
Very nice.
December 13th, it'll be 25 years. And so can I geese a little bit, just a tiny little bit, to go back to December 13th, 1991, and
About
sort of...
old?
Well, I mean, we're all a lot older, by the way. And by the way, we're celebrating this month by doing a bunch of Raven shows. So I got Marshall Yonda Wednesday night. He'll be joining us at a Greenmount Station. We're going to be out in Hampstead. Come on out, see the Christmas lights, get a crab cake. They're tasty as hell. Love them. And Marshall Yonda is going to be out having some fun with us. We'll be swabbing for There Goes My Hero in the Bone Marrow Registry. I'm getting a bunch of guys out this month. So this is just the one this week. We're doing a few more next week and getting into the holidays and hopefully through January and all the way to Houston and winning a Super Bowl. But December 13th, 1991, let me just say this to you, Alan. It was a different world, right? There were no Ravens. There was no thought that we were getting a team. There was no expansion yet, right? Camden Yards was just coming together. We had just dug up home plate and brought it downtown in the limo, remember?
Didn't know or care who Peter Angelos was at the time?
Had no idea that Peter Angelos is going to come and wreck baseball here. I mean, that's a great point. But I would say this. I went on the radio then, and then in 1992, 93, 94, 94 was the worst, right? Because after there was no World Series. 95, 96, 97. In those years, this was the biggest week of the year for anything could happen. It was like pre-Christmas. You could get a little Jimmy Key for the holidays. You might get a Harold Baines. You might wind up with a Bobby Bonilla. Who knows? Maybe a David Wells or a Kevin Brown. Maybe Santa would bring you a Roberto Alomar or a B.J. Suroff or an extension for a Brady Anderson or a Mike Messina or a Cal Ripken. And, maybe you buy a Rick Sutcliffe here this offseason. They're nice around the holidays. So I would just say... And this is a baseball issue. Football manages in January to have playoffs, in February to have a Super Bowl, in March to have guys running around in their gym shorts, in April to draft said guys in their gym shorts. In May, somebody will get arrested or shot. You can count on it. There's something happening. And with baseball, it feels like it's been incredibly dormant as an Oriole fan because, they were out of it, but they were a playoff team, so they got to live another 11 innings, was it, Alan? 10, 11, whatever it was.
11 innings.
11 more innings than anyone else lived. There's been a little action, and, Beltran got him a deal, and Holiday's going to wind up playing for the Yankees, which is not good news for the Orioles. But this used to be like something that a guy like me could get on a plane and fly away and do radio for a week and have no problem doing radio. Now, instead, we got Army-Navy this week. I got the Terps playing basketball. We got the other Terps going into a relatively meaningless bowl game in Detroit. But we got this football team in first place. And, the baseball team still plays. And I know they're not held to the same accountability as, let's say, Joe Flacco or John Harbaugh or anyone else that anybody wanted to fire around here a couple of weeks ago. Now they're printing their playoff tickets. But this whole winter meetings thing, not much happens anymore. And it's not just an Oriole thing. It's just not much happens anymore. And it's kind of a shame because I wanted to go down there and camp out for a couple of days. But quite frankly, I got other things to do.
Well, from the Orioles, I think it's fair to say that a lot hasn't happened during this period of time during the last few years. But I wouldn't know. I don't know if I would say it doesn't happen for any teams in baseball. I think you see some teams go out.
You
I think
see
it
some
starts.
blockbuster trade this week. You see anything crazy in the next 4 days, literally, that by Friday I'm eating these words, and a couple of pretty big things happen. They say this is a setup meeting now, right? Is what
Well,
it
the
is,
first
right?
thing, the owners' meetings have gotten bigger because this is where most of these deals, or at least the sort of teasing these deals start. And then you see some things come to fruition in the winter meetings. The Houston Astros have been really aggressive here in the off season, getting some things done, and we've seen the Yankees do a few things and sort of state their intention about developing the players they received last year in their trades, but also going out to provide some punch for this coming season. We know that the Tigers are looking to divest of their very expensive players that they've been trying to win the World Series with for the last few years, and Chris Sale and the like out with the White Sox. It's certainly being talked about in terms of trade. And then we had the non-tenders a few days ago. So there are certainly some things happening. It's easy to sort of miss them amidst the holidays and the election and football itself, but there's certainly still some stuff going on now. For the Orioles, we certainly know that Duquette's going to do things late. So
You almost said Andy McPhail. That's great, man.
Well, because what I was going to say was...
I was going to say Roland Heeman, but that really would have been turned back the clock week for me.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that when Andy McPhail was here, he was very busy in these periods of times. I mean, J.J. Hardy, Mark Reynolds, those kinds of players came in this period of time, right at the beginning of the winter meetings, and went out to do some things. But Duquette, other than the Rule 5 draft, he just sits on his hands. We've seen him sign some minor league players, and bring back Logan Verrett, the guy that we saw a couple of spring trainings ago, I guess essentially to replace the Vanimal. But other than that, there's certainly nothing that's going to blow your doors off for the Orioles right now.
All right. Well, that being said, put your general manager hat on. What do you expect to happen here? Do you expect them to really deal Gallardo or deal Jimenez or deal Wade Miley? That seems to be some level of scuttlebutt. Of course it would be great to get rid of some of those contracts, some of those monies, and certainly who's going to take them? And then the question becomes, do you really want them coming back to Sarasota for 6 weeks to fight to all be the number 5 starter that you're going to call the number 3 and 4 and 5?
No, I don't expect them to deal those guys. I don't know who would take them or why. I expect one of them ultimately to fill the long relief role, whether that be Wade Miley or Gallardo. Essentially a swing man. Which is why I assume Vance Worley became expendable. I see them. Look, if you're asking me, are they going to spend any real money? I know they're trying to. The word is they're trying to sign Mark Trumbo, which is actually the last thing I would do. But
you would have said that about Chris Davis last year, probably. You were not on they have to give him $150 million.
And I would say today, I wouldn't. I don't think that it was a smart move to sign Chris Davis.
Well, keep in mind, the owner got involved there. That's a fact, right?
That's fine, but Mark, at least you had a history with Chris Davis, and at least he can help you defensively in a way that Mark Trumbo really can't. I think that they hamstring themselves. Really, the only open position they have right now is right field, and they need to change the dynamic of this team. We've talked about it over and over again. They need someone who's not about hitting home runs and striking out 180 times a year, and that's what Mark Trumbo does. I'll tell you what I'd like. I can tell you exactly what I'd like to see them do. If they're going to if they're going to spend any money, and the odds are that they aren't, because this is the odd year.
Well, they already said they're not raising ticket prices, so they're not spending money.
And Duquette said already that he's not looking to do anything major with the pitching staff, which is a direct shot to say that that's not going to happen. If they were going to spend money, I would say they need to go after a guy exactly like Dexter Fowler, which I doubt will happen. And put aside Mark Trumbo. It helps them at the leadoff spot. It helps them defensively. It gives them a different dynamic on the team. If they're looking at them saying they're probably not going to spend money, I would be proactive, which again I think we know Duquette's not going to do. And here's what I do: first of all, I I would not sign Mark Trumbo. I wouldn't attempt to sign Mark Trumbo. He's going to cost too much money based on the year he had, and he doesn't do enough for you. I would sign Pedro Alvarez again. I would sign Pedro Alvarez because you can get him for less money, because he had a secretly good year. They didn't play him much because they could use another left-handed bat. And while he strikes out a lot and hits home runs, he's a guy that will take a walk. We've seen that. He has better at bats than a Mark Trumbo does. And it would allow you to at least have some room, at least in, let's say, a platoon, because we know that he's probably not going to get played against left-handed pitchers, for Trey Mancini or Christian Walker, whichever one you believe in the most right now. So it opens up a spot for a young guy, and then if you feel like they're ready, then you don't sign him. Then you can diminish his role, Pedro Alvarez, that is, as you go, and at least give them an opportunity from the DH point of view. If you're not going to sign another leadoff hitter, then you say, hey, we like Joey Rickard, then I would at least look to do one of two things. Either bring back Michael Bourne, who looked like a decent fourth outfielder for this team, who can do a few things for you.
He looked like a major league player, quite frankly.
He did.
Right?
Probably not an everyday player anymore, but can give you a competent at bat. Probably play two or three times a week, or give you a good pinch hit from the left side and run. And this is the Nationals non-tendered Ben Revere, and Ben Revere has been a very good player up till last year, where he started off with an injury and never got on track. And I would be looking straight on at Ben Revere, saying, "You're my guy." He probably won't cost you a ton. And that's, I think, might be the guy that can bounce back and have a comeback player of the year type year in 2017. I would look at Tyson Ross, who the San Diego Padres non-tendered because of injury, who had been a fantastic pitcher for them for the years leading up to the last one with the injury. I'm not sure if he's going to be ready to start the season, but if you make a pact with a guy who knows how to pitch, who probably won't cost as much coming off of an injury, to say we're gonna nurse you back and see where you are, then I think you make a commitment for your rotation for the time being. So again, finding low cost moves for a team that is trying to be frugal, shall we say, but you have to be proactive to do those things. Those guys are going to be gone before you get to March 5th, when Duquette likes to act. So, I mean, those are low-cost things that this team could do right now. I'd bring Steve Pearce back, not as an everyday player. The mistake they made with Steve Pearce a couple of years ago is that they decided they were going to let Nick Markakis go and play him every day, and he's not an everyday player. But if you bring him back as a super utility guy, left field, right field, first base, a second base if you absolutely need it, or you need to give Scope a day off. He was the emergency catcher for a few years. Can probably catch the ball at third base. I wouldn't go as far as say he can play third base. He takes a walk. He can hit a home run, and he gives you better at bats than a lot of the guys are going to play every day. So I mean, there are low cost things that the Orioles can do to help this team right now, that aren't going to break the bank and make them a better team. If they wait to do these things, then they're going to lose out, and we're going to look at more Gallardos and Ryan Flaherty's and Rule 5s. But the difference often are legitimate, as you said, major league players who are not necessarily every day and aren't going to cost you $50 million, but can do things to help you, can do things to make you better. You look at Coco Crisp for the Cleveland Indians. Not an everyday player anymore, but can still give you a competent at bat. David Ross for the Cubs. I mean, there are players out there that if you spend a little bit of money, not a ton of money, and not wait until March, but act early on, that you can bring in and help augment your lineup, not just for what they can do, but maybe more importantly, and this is something we've seen with the Orioles, that you can rest your guys, that you can give Adam Jones a day off, that you can give Chris Davis a day off. Same thing with Manny Machado and Jonathan Scope. And so when they get to September 15th, they're not dragging so hard that they can't make it through the postseason or make it to the end of the season. These are the kinds of things that Dan Duquette needs to do, little pieces, little moves, small moves, that make a 25-man roster better.
He is Alan McCallum. Alan at WNST.net is the way to reach him. We got winter meetings going on all week. So we, as I said, we used to be able to do 4 days of radio around this. And instead, you can do about 20 minutes on it and talk about a handful of possibilities. Not much that would feel like a big move. You know what I mean? All the nonsense about trading Machado because you're not going to sign him and bringing in 4 prospects and, all of that sort of big talk, right? That sort of ballsy talk. That's the kind of stuff Andy McPhail would have done, right? If they weren't
right.
That's not the kind of thing Dan Duquette, I don't know, can get creative about or whether feels compelled to do. Again, this time last year, we're talking about the guy who didn't want to be in the organization and was, stuck here, quite frankly, putting a team together after he tried to escape, right?
So you said nonsense of Manny Machado. Would you consider trading him for the right package?
Well, if you're not going to sign him, sure.
Right.
I mean, sure. If you aren't looking at your 2020 and 21 and 22 budgets and saying we're going to put a $34 million number on him for those years, whether we get to that number or not, but it's going to be where that is. If you're not seriously considering doing that with him, someone else will be, and then it's tick-tock, tick-tock, and his value will diminish. And sure, maybe you're not in it 2 years from now toward the end, and maybe you get 2 prospects then or something that looks like a rental before he goes. But nobody's going to give you much of anything anyway because they don't want to rent him. They want to own him, right? So, and they're going to have the opportunity for a couple $100 million to own him if they, or Bryce Harper or Trout or wherever all that money's going to go, but somebody's going to get that money.
Look, when the Orioles started this run in 2012, they were a young team with a lot of upside that could stay together for a long time. And last year and this coming season, 2017, they were a veteran team with a couple of young guys. And even Machado's a young veteran. I mean, he's been knocking around Camden Yards since 2012. You can't forget that.
But this thing started with Markakis and Roberts and, right? And that's where, and Wieters, and, that's where it started.
I would say the earliest you can bring this run where they've gotten to the postseason 3 of the last 5 years. Let's say 2011, where it was J.J. Hardy's first full year. They got Chris Davis that year. We started to see Adam Jones and Nick Markakis. At that point they were young veterans who were taking hold of the team. That was Buck's first full season as the Orioles manager. There were pieces that started to happen in 2011 that they brought into 2012.
Well, if Arrieta would have been held on to, we'd be talking. I mean, and would have blossomed.
Don't get me started.
Right. I mean, that's the difference between where they've been and where they want to go. Would be a real pitcher. I mean, you can talk about Chris Tillman all you want, and talk to me about Gaussman, and I mean, they need to have an not a. Might be some of the time, right?
Right now, I hesitate to do this, but Jake Arrieta, Zach Davies,
I got him going. Look out! Here we go.
Zach Britton. I mean, right now, I firmly believe that those should be 3/5 of the Orioles rotation, and that's not the case. I mean, Zach Britton's still here, and he's been magnificent, but he's the best reliever in baseball, not a starter. We know Jake Arrieta is about to sport a world championship ring, is a major piece and contributor to the best team in baseball. And Zach Davies got traded for Gerardo Parra and had a really nice season for a young guy in the National League. So, I mean, those moves didn't happen, and I think, again, those are short. You can look at the shortcomings of Dan Duquette and his organization for those moves and how they happened. But they won 89 games, all that said, and got to the postseason. So it's not like they can't do it again. But the question is, how do you get over the top? What was lacking last year that didn't let them get deep into the postseason? How can they do those things? And again, I mean, I'll bring you back to a guy like Tyson Ross. I mean, I don't know when he's going to be ready to go, but that's an opportunity you just can't look over if you're the Orioles. You have to pay attention to that. Ben Revere. I mean, these are players that can make a difference on a club like theirs. Even if you don't want to spend Dexter Fowler money, and I sort of get that, particularly after what happened last season, right? Why mess around with him again? But there are pieces out there. Again, Steve Pearce. I mean, who will probably end up with the Orioles again anyway, even if he doesn't sign with them in March. Why not be proactive and make moves for legitimate major league players that aren't going to cost you $50 million, but it'll cost you, I don't know, $5 million, $8 million over 2 years for a contract that can help you and add to what you have. Right now, they have a veteran team that's 1 or 2 years away from getting old. In 2 or 3 years, they're going to be old. Adam Jones and Chris Davis will be older players in the post quote unquote PED era. And if you're not going to sign, and they're stuck with Chris Davis. I mean, some of those guys are going to be stuck with. If you
like
can't
they're stuck
sign,
with the pitchers right now, quite frankly, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You've got Jimenez and Gallardo it's their last season, so technically you're not stuck with them for long term. But I mean, they pigeonhole you into not being able to make some moves you might like to make. If you can't sign Manny Machado soon, if you're not, or let me put it this way, if you're not willing to make the probably near $500 million commitment to him it's going to take to sign him, if you say the guy's too hot-headed, and as good as he is, he doesn't know what he's trying to be, he goes through big slumps at times, he's not Mike Trout, then you got to trade him. I mean, you do have to trade him. If you have to make that decision soon. Now, I'll be honest. I'm not sure Andrew Kitt's the guy I want to rebuild my team, but...
Well, I mean, what's going to happen? Is it going to cost them ticket sales at this point? Nobody was going to the games to see Machado, right? I mean, it's not like trading Cal Ripken or something. Although, people will... Look, last week, the New York Daily News put Machado in a Yankees uniform on the cover, and the internet went crazy amongst the nerds that, are still involved in the offseason here and caring about such things. It's like, this has never happened. And, of course, I put up the picture of Messina shaking Joe Torre's hand and said, this has happened, and it will happen again. And, unless the old man's, this is the roulette you play, unless the old man's going to give him $280 million tomorrow or whatever that number is. I mean, it's probably more than that. And I'm sure their numbers are way off. And this is the way the old man thinks. Well, if he turns an ankle again, it'll be like Wieters all over again. We'll be qualifying him and getting him for $18 million. Let's not give this man. We've seen this before. I can hear this, but... if you're going to bet against him for the next 2-3 years, okay. I mean, that's what they did, I guess, with Messina, right? They didn't want him to do so well because if he did so well, they'd have to pay him more.
I would just say, again, I mean, I do think there's something to be said for not putting your entire financial structure into one player in baseball. I'm not opposed to that. I think you can be financially frugal as a legitimate major league team and still be a good team if you draft well and you develop your players well and you are not short-sighted enough to give away an ace in waiting for nothing and not keep the players you get. And you pick and choose and you put yourself in a position. Look, the St. Louis Cardinals let Albert Pujols go. I mean, they're one of the best organizations in baseball. I mean, it didn't kill them. They retooled those resources into other players, multiple players that could help that team. And they continue to develop their own players. The problem isn't that Manny Machado, the Orioles are going to live and die with Manny Machado. It's that they haven't done a strong enough job developing anybody else around or before Manny Machado, and you don't have great confidence in what they'll do after. Which returns me to if you believe in Trey Mancini, as one of the only guys that you think you can has developed into a player that you think can really help you, why block him at every possible position that he can play, whether it be first base or DH, and signing guys like Chris Davis and Mark Trumbo, who Buck's going to play until they drop dead. Again, at least if you sign Pedro Alvarez, you get some thump. And a guy who's left-handed, something that a commodity, particularly in Camden Yards with the short porch, and still open up some at bats, 200, 250 for a guy like Trey Mancini while he spells Chris Davis at first base from time to time, and the like. So I mean, there are things that you can do to keep this team viable. And still have room for some of the players you believe in. And again, if you decide that you don't believe in Manny Machado, or you're just simply not going to spend that kind of money, which is a viable thing to consider for a team that's considers themselves or plays or manages themselves like they're a mid-market club, and you don't want to eat up that kind of payroll structure, then you certainly have to be proactive in moving them and finding the right deal and getting players back that are legitimately going to help you.
He is Alan McCallum, Alan at WNST.net. The winter meetings local this week. The Ravens in first place and taking on the New England Patriots. You can reach Alan at WNST.net. Wednesday night, we'll be with Marshall Yanda out at Carroll County's finest crab cake establishment. We'll be at Greenmount Station. I'll be eating some crab cakes, knocking back a beverage, and chatting football and life. It's been a long time since Marshall and I have gotten together. We'll be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry, and for There Goes My Hero. Come out, get swabbed for the holidays. It's a lovely ride up to Hampstead this time of year with the Christmas lights. I'm looking forward to it. Wednesday night, we'll be there at 7:30 with our guy, multiple Pro Bowler, Marshall Yanda. And he doesn't do it often, but we were blessed that he's coming out. And, worked out really well for Pitta the other night, too. So, and I don't think that I didn't remind Pitta that after the game as well. You can check all of that out on our Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNS TV channel for all the videos there. We'll be streaming all that stuff live. And anything you miss, you can find in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. It's all brought to you by BuyAToyota.com. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Ravens offense better than my speech pattern here this week. Last but never least, any breaking news out of the owners' meetings? That's not a punchline, but if there is news, you'll get it first in the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. I am a very available individual. 25 years and running strong on next Tuesday, the 13th. A 25-year anniversary. Send silver, not gold. We're not there yet. Nasty at WNST.net. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.